Hello everyone and welcome back to JAS Reviews. My name is James and welcome back to my first album review in quite some time. And today I'm going to be talking about the newest from the punk rock band Creeper with their album Sex, Death, and the Infinite Void. Creeper is a punk rock band that hails from New England, and they're definitely one of the most exciting acts to come out of the punk rock scene in quite some time. I really enjoyed their first album, Eternity in Your Arms. I'd sort of gotten into them with their EPs, but I didn't really fully like them as a band or fully get what they were going for until their first full-length Eternity in Your Arms, and then I started appreciating their EPs even more. But that debut album is absolutely excellent. Definitely a great album with so much theatricality and such a sense of fun in it, and Black Rain, the lead single from the album, still remains to be one of my favorite songs of 2017. Now, after Eternity in Your Arms, it actually seemed like Creeper's future was a little bit uncertain, considering that for a while they sort of died. I think that was a band metaphorically killing themselves off. But there seemed to be all sorts of troubles going on. I know one of the band members was put into the hospital for having a mental breakdown, but I was very happy when they suddenly spurted back to life and they announced this new album, and they basically rebirthed themselves. In fact, lead singer Will Gould said he didn't want to reproduce the stuff they did on Eternity in Your Arms, and instead he wanted to go a completely different route. So, we've got a totally new story for this new album. We've got a totally different sound, actually. What does Sex, Death, and the Infinite Void give to us from Creeper? And how does it compare to their previous album? Now, I will say this album's concept is actually pretty intriguing. It focuses on a fallen angel who falls in love with a human girl named Annabelle, who is with another man named Buddy, who it seems like is a pretty toxic person and just brings her down constantly, and so she falls for this fallen angel. There's a lot of stuff to commend about this album. The lead single, Born Cold, is definitely more in line with Eternity in Your Arms era Creeper, and it's probably one of the more Creeper sounding songs on this album, at least the Creeper that we're used to hearing. I think they had a good idea with releasing this as the lead single for the album because it does a good job at keeping us comfortable with the old Creeper, although this song also does a good job at sort of hinting at some of the newer sounds we're going to get into this album. For example, the much more straight-up rock vibe that this album has, and some of the more softer textures of Will Gould's vocals. And this song, Born Cold, it's incredibly catchy. It does a really good job of embodying the thesis of the album and talking from the perspective of this fallen angel who was born in this world and his impressions of this world that he's in. And I really like Will Gould's vocals in this song in particular. It's really Cyanide, where we start to see the different musicality and the different lyrical tropes that this album is going to have. This song is the first that sounds nearly unrecognizable Creeper on this album. It's like they're a whole new band here, which was the intent. They've basically rebirthed into a whole new band. And this song, I think, embodies a lot of what the rest of the album has. A sense of even more theatricality to the point where this song feels like it could fit into a musical in a way. And also, this song has some more twangy vibes to it that almost bring to mind country in a way. And there's even some glam metal elements in this song too. Now, doing country, or even a hint of country, was not something that I at all expected Creeper to do. It's definitely one of the most out of left field moves they could do, and I appreciate them for really taking that step and going into this risky territory. Another more classic Creeper sounding track comes in Annabelle. This one is definitely more conventional Creeper and could fit very comfortably on Eternity in Your Arms, which I'm not complaining about at all. In fact, this is honestly my favorite song on the album. I love how the band just delights in rebelliousness on this song, with the lyric "God Can't Save Us" not necessarily being so much jab at religion as it is the Westboro Baptist Church, because this song is sort of a diss against them as well. But it also frames the story of the fallen angel and Annabelle together and how they're sort of going on this rebellious path. So I like how the song sort of puts those two different stories together to make for a far more interesting song, and one that actually has some emotional impact. But what really makes the song work for me is the sing-along quality it has. This one is going to do volumes in a live setting especially. I can see this one being sung along to at the top of fans' lungs. Now after this song, we go into very unconventional territory for the rest of the album. The rest of the album embraces a lot more of the country vibes, which works sometimes to the album's advantage and sometimes to the album's detriment. And a song like Poison Heart really brings across the over-the-top themes that this album contains. I love the chorus of this song in particular. I think the verses aren't super interesting, but the chorus of the song honestly saves it for me, with Will's vocals having this higher vocal register that I honestly wish he would have used more on the album. And I really do think this song actually does a good job at embracing its more country roots that it has. It's once again a very interesting and odd thing for Creeper to do, but it just works for them on this song in particular. After a pretty soft middle section of the album, Napalm Girls brings back an energy to the album that I wish was present a couple more times, but this song still stands tall as a definite highlight, along with Black Moon, which sort of goes along with the Black series that Creeper has. And I like that this song sort of reinforces the themes of the album. All My Friends is the fitting ending to this album though, and I really like how haunted Will Gould sounds on this song. This song chronicles Ian Davis, the guitarist of Creeper, and his journey into the hospital with his mental breakdown, and how Will felt during this time. And this song is probably the most vulnerable on the album and the most honest. In fact, it definitely is. And I like that the band ends off with a song that is more grounded and more honest in an album that is honestly really over the top and theatrical in a lot of places. I think it was a good choice for them to ground the album in its ending moments and to really end on a more contemplative note. Now, there are definitely some negative spots on this album. For one, I don't think this album is quite as good as Eternity in Your Arms. I did sort of allude to this, but I feel like this album is missing a bit of the raw energy that Eternity in Your Arms had. To be fair, there is a new type of energy that this album has, and that's its theatricality, a word that I've used many times in this review. But sometimes that theatricality can be to the album's detriment, and in some places I feel like either they're playing it up too much, whereas in other places, they're almost playing it up a little bit too subtly. This is definitely the case in the song Be My End, which sort of kicks off the album after a pretty weird interlude. In fact, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that the interludes of this album just don't work as a whole, really. I feel like they honestly stop the flow of the album and sort of make it feel a lot more fractured than it really needs to be. But back to Be My End, I've tried to get into this song. I feel like there's some aspects of it that work, like the chorus is actually pretty catchy, but I feel like the song just doesn't launch the album like it really needs to. When you compare it to Black Rain, which really set off Eternity in Your Arms in a blaze, this song is a little bit underwhelming, and I think that Born Cold honestly would have begun the album on a much better note than Be My End. Paradise is the first country-leaning song on this album, and it's definitely one of the weaker, unfortunately. It sort of marks a weak middling half of this album. The whole middle of this album sort of disrupts the flow, in my opinion. I don't really like Will's vocals in this song. He's really trying to give off this almost Elvis impersonation, I feel like, and it doesn't really work for his vocals. I feel like he works best in the mid to higher range, and I think he really goes a little bit too over the top here to where his voice becomes annoying to me in some ways. But actually, the weakest song on the album is definitely Thorns of Love. For some reason, the band decides to lean into a more 60s doo-wop vibe on this song, and I'm not really sure why they went this route, because this route just doesn't work for them. I mean, Hannah's vocals are good as always, but I think they're wasted on this song, and honestly, it's just a really weird track. It doesn't really come into its own at any moment, and it honestly feels like it's trying to find its identity the whole time. I don't really dislike Holy War. In fact, I like the duet aspect of it, but this is once again a song that feels a little bit forgettable to me, and it honestly probably suffers because it comes once again in the middle of the album, where the middle has this incredibly slow run of songs. Even though this song is the strongest of the middle half, it still feels weak in context of the rest of the songs here, sort of making the middle half almost entirely skippable to me. As a whole though, I really did enjoy this new Creeper album. It isn't as strong as their debut, but that would be a pretty hard album to top with its raw energy and great lyricism. I like the idea that Creeper is going to possibly reinvent themselves with every album. It seems like that might be something they're looking to do. They seem like they're ambitious enough to want to do that, and like to not stick to one sound, so I'll be interested to see what they do on their next album if the rebirth thing is the case for them. There are definitely some issues with this album that can be ignored, but I still did enjoy it as a whole, so I'm going to give it a strong 3.5 out of 5 stars, with a general recommendation. Creeper is still a pretty underrated band, and I feel like this album might go overlooked, so go check it out for yourself. You might enjoy what you hear. So yeah, that was my latest album review. If you've heard this new album by Creeper, what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments down below. Once again, my name is James. I do reviews of both music and movies, along with the occasional commentary piece. If any of that sounds interesting to you, then please feel free to leave a like on this video and to subscribe to my channel for future content. And until then, I will see you all in the next video.